Welcome to 8,000 Miles to TapTown. My name is Finbar and this is Don Schiff. Get the funk out. Don needs no introduction. He's a legend amongst legends. He's got funk in his fingers and groove in his soul. He's a larger-than-life personality with more chops than a butcher's shop. This week on 8,000 Miles to TapTown, we get an incredible insight into this man's life, from hustling the Vegas Strip at 19, backing artists like Sammy Davis Jr. and Elvis, being the highest paid non-playing musician on the Vegas Strip, to traveling to Los Angeles, the birth of the NS Stick, his band, the Rocket Scientist, sessions, etc., etc. It's a great episode. We had a few issues with the connection on the episode, so I hope you can bear with that, but it's a great episode nonetheless. Anyway, without further ado, Don Schiff. So welcome, Don. Welcome to 8,000 Miles to TapTown, mate. It's an amazing treat to have you on.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, Finn.
So this show, it's obviously you've got this incredible pedigree. I've just been going through some of your history. It's just amazing. We'll delve into that, and just wanted to sort of, it's amazing having someone on that's been right at the start of this journey. That's been through all these different iterations, and being able to talk to you because I'm coming at this instrument quite young. I'm about a year and a half in, and just so inspired by players like yourself, and also your personality, how you infuse in it. I love that, I just think it's great being able to showcase this sort of, I call it's like an undercurrent, a subculture of music, and for me, it's as a player coming to an instrument like this and going, wow, it's just opened my eyes to what's possible compositionally. I'd hope this will, get other players to take some of the fear away and explore it. So thank you.
Me too. Yeah, I've been at it a while. I've been at it since the brown hair days, and
well, you look good like that, mate. So
Oh yeah, well, I could only
people with brown hair want blonde hair, and people with blonde hair want brown hair. So
eventually we all end up the same in the white gray hair years. So I've been at it a while, and it's really grown. And when I started playing, there weren't that many, and now to see over all these years, Chapman stick or war guitar, or I think there's two others I'm aware of that, of course, I can't remember right now, but they're out there. Just being able to touch on the instrument. Like when I describe it, I say, picture somebody playing the piano like this, and then they turn their hands like this. And, you got two hands to play two different parts. And so to watch that evolve has been amazing. I had my own personal reasons when I started. I was a professional bass player, and I needed that ground covered, regardless of anything else. And so that was my adaptation for that. Before I go into a story about all of that,
I love all the stories, mate. Like
all the time. If you have a question, I'll answer.
Well, I'm so interested at 19 going to Vegas, and then being like playing in like Flamingo, like a place I've been to so many times. I'm just like picturing you there, being there in that heyday, and behind Elvis and Sammy Davis Jr. That must have been just amazing.
Yeah. It was incredible, and I was just so fortunate and so lucky at a high school to have the opportunity to play with. I started with Rosalind Kind, who was the half sister of Barbara Streisand. She had a 3-week engagement at the Flamingo, so she called my dad. I had worked for her before in New York while I was in school, and then she got this wonderful opportunity and called my dad and said, is your son available? And my dad said, oh, yeah. Oddly enough, he just graduated high school. So he's either going to mow lawns or do something else. So I went to Las Vegas and played that show, and that ended. And I thought, okay, I love being a musician. I want to continue to do this. So I went to her manager, and he goes, I got you a gig. You're now a busboy at this hotel. And I went, that's not what I wanted. And he said, well, he says, if you want to be a musician in Las Vegas, they don't want you here. This is the highest paying union for musicians in the country. So they make it tough. So you have to hold another job, nothing musical, for 6 months. And so, welcome to being a busboy. And so I did that. I went to the union. You had to sign in once a week. You weren't allowed to leave the area or take only take non-musical work. So I was asking the president of the union, I said, okay, there's got to be an out. I can't see myself doing this. So, if you can get one of the conductors to say, oh, we specifically need this young man, he says, then we'll let you do the gig. I didn't know anybody. And so, I called around and introduced myself to all the contractors and conductors and got the same old, oh, yeah, really nice. All right, yeah, go fold some napkins. So I did that for a while, but my ace in the hole was that there was a saxophone player when I was playing for Rosalind Kind that was one of the standard Vegas musicians, and he just kept mentioning my name to the conductors. If there was an issue with the bass player or they needed someone, he would just say, I got this kid, this busboy, and he's really, really, really good. He can handle it. So after the 5th month, so I skirted 1 month, the conductor told my friend, he says, okay, go get your busboy. We'll give him a shot. So I did the audition, and so that was my start. And then I started in the showroom of the Flamingo. How much of the story do you want? It's long.
No, that's that. Like, I just think it's. I love all this because it's sort of, this. The story behind the story is a major part of the makeup of where you are today, right? And I think it resonates. Look, it resonates with a lot of people. It's that going out on a limb, like you're going to mow lawns up on the East Coast, or and then an opportunity comes, and like there's so many opportunities come past us in life, and being able to adapt and jump at these opportunities. So many people are, it's like, oh, I can't do that, or they self-sabotage. Oh, I can't do this, or I can't do that. But sometimes these things, it's just they change your life. It's just
you had to bend with the wind and be positive. While I was at the Flamingo, playing all the acts that came in, it was all great. But the conductor me month in, and he says, I have to make an announcement to the orchestra, but this doesn't have anything to do with you, and I have to tell you that up front, so just ignore it. And I went, well, that's a weird preface to a conversation. So I waited, and at the end of the gig, the conductor comes out and says, okay, orchestra, I have an announcement. You're all fired. And I went, oh, okay, but he said it doesn't have anything to do with me. Okay, I'm going to believe him. So after making that announcement, he took me aside and he says, okay, the Flamingo and the Hilton were owned by the same company, and they called the Hilton the Big House because that's where Elvis played and all the bigger stars that didn't play at the Flamingo. So he says, the bosses over there, they're looking out for you. So yes, everybody's fired, but they're going to keep paying you, even though you're not going to work and you don't have a gig to go to. They don't want you to go anywhere. So just go home, sit tight in your apartment, wait for the phone to ring. I liked that deal. That was good. And then, a couple weeks later, they call and they said, okay, they don't have a position for you in another showroom yet, but they want you to come over to the Hilton, and they have a restaurant called Benihana Village, which is a nice chain. And I think it's Japanese cuisine. On the bottom floor, they had a karate show, and these guys would come out and chop at each other and flip each other around while people ate their meal. And up above that was a second floor with a window, so that in the bandstand, which was that second floor, you could look down at the karate show, and they had music written for the chops and the kicks.
So bizarre.
Yeah, it was a very funny moment and bizarre. Never did anything like that before in my life. So did that for a couple months, and then same thing. That conductor comes in and says, pulls me aside and says, this has nothing to do with you. You'll be taking care of. Ignore what. And then he announces that now everybody's fired. Wow. Okay. So he says, go home, collect your check, you'll get a call, and you'll know what to do. So, I waited and a couple more weeks, and then I got a call, and they said, okay, now you're in the big room now. You're in the Hilton showroom, and your first show is Anne Margaret. And she had just come off the movie Tommy. And so I was like, oh, okay, this ought to be great, So we're going to have some music from The Who, but it was written for this like 40-piece orchestra. I'd never seen so many people on the stage. At that time, the Hilton had the largest showroom on the Strip. And so I'm looking at the chart, and I went, I've never seen so many sharps and flats in my life. And
Yeah.
so I don't know about this. This is going to, I'm either going to sink or swim. And I was really scared and really very nervous about it. And I was 19. So I just assumed, rightfully, everybody knows more than I do. But there's only, one bass chair. I figured at least if you're in the sax section and you get lost, the tenor player next to you could say, I want to measure 15. I'm on my own if I, get confused. But I'm looking at it and I go, wow, 5 sharps going into 5 flats. Oh, my God. So they wave off the first tune, and it starts, and it's big, and it's glorious, and it's loud, and I'm having a blast playing, doing the best I can. And I'm reading the chart, and I'm going, yeah, but I'm kind of feeling something different here. I could really move this tune along if I did what I wanted to. And being young and naive, I just figured, oh, okay, I'll just do what I want to do. So I start playing my own bass line and enjoying the heck out of it. Tune's over. And the guy that arranged the music was in the rehearsal, and just sitting there looking with a drink in his hand, and he's looking at me, giving me the you didn't read what I wrote, and I think I'm going to call you out on it. So he starts to approach the stage, and Anne Margaret turns around and meets him halfway, coincidentally, and says, that's the great, I love that arrangement. This sounds so good. The feel is magnificent. And he looks at me and turns away. He goes, yeah, man, that's the way I write them.
Yeah, that's my boy. That's my boy.
Yeah. He reads real good. So I took that lesson, and I went, okay, I'm on to something here. So every show that came through, I would play what I would want to play. And it turned out that then you get a couple nights off, and they bring in a whole new orchestra. And, of course, that next relief bass player did what he was supposed to do, read the chart. He does that for every show on the Strip. So the day that we all came back and told the conductor, what happened? It didn't feel the same on those other days. And they said, well, it's a relief orchestra. You had a new bass player, et cetera.
Because he's doing what he's supposed to do.
Yeah, every show. So I did that with every show. And then hence, when the shows would go on tour outside of Las Vegas, they didn't have me then either. So then they would call and say, would I tour? And the hotel caught wind of it, and they pulled me aside and they said, okay, you're going to be asked to go out a lot. We don't want to lose you. We're going to continue to pay whether you're here or not. We just want you to promise to come back when you're off tour. And I went, what's wrong with that deal? I'll take it.
You're the most highest paid non-working musician in Vegas.
Absolutely.
There's a great story too. Like I was when I was young, I was doing lots of clinics for these guitar companies, demonstrating guitars, and I was like known as this shred guy around Australia. And my friend who was in an orchestra, he said, "Look, can you fill in?" And I could read and everything. I used to teach at the conservatorium. You go, can you fill in for me with this orchestra? And it's a really big paying gig. It's a big state school spectacular. There's like 10,000 kids, and you're with Tommy Tico, this big orchestra. I'm like, yeah, no worries. So I turn up. Yeah. I'm like 21. I turn up with my Jackson and a Mesa Boogie rig with all this gear, right? Anyway, I look at the charts, and it's all in B flat because all the horns. I'm just like, oh my God,
of course.
Right? So and then I had to open this song called Skippy the Bush Kangaroo, which is this Australian song. But it was all written like jazz fusion. It was like, but I had to do it all on the guitar and then lead in the orchestra behind me. So I'm like, oh my God, I can fake a bit of stuff as I'm, comping round. But this was like my time. So anyway, I practiced this and practiced it, got it ready. The night comes, and I had like this Bob Bradshaw switching system, and everyone in the orchestra just got like and I've got this whole technology rack. Anyway, so the part comes where I'm supposed to, all the lights come up. I hit my patch, and my patch goes to my death metal Steve Lukather screaming guitar patch by mistake. And then I'm like, I'm all in. Like, I can't change patch halfway. So I did this big, like, Eddie Van Halen type solo intro to this like beautiful orchestral piece. And at the end, I never got asked back. It was like, that was it. Anyway, so you just reminded me of that. It was like some of those hilarious stories, you know. But so it's amazing, Don. So look, from there, how did you go? Right, where you got the stick in what, 75? Was it your first stick?
Mm-hmm.
So how did you find that? It was like, that's just after when Emmett invented it, wasn't it?
Yeah. So then they in Las Vegas they called them kicks bands, which was like after hours groups you would play with. And so I did one. There was a guy that was a drummer for, I can't remember the big band, Tommy Dorsey, something like that. And so he was playing, and he was from Los Angeles. Les DeMurle was his name. And he says, he says, I was just in LA playing with this guy, Emmett Chapman, and he plays something that's like bass and guitar in one. And as a kid, I just had this weird thought in the back of my head as I was a bass player saying, you know, one day they're going to invent something different, and you'll play it. And it's not quite a bass, a little bit more. And so when he said that, it just rang that bell. And I said, okay, well, what's that guy's name? So then I got his name and number and took my wife, and we took a trip to Los Angeles, and I met Emmett and saw the instrument, and I went, oh, gotta have it. And I didn't realize the bass was in fifths and inverted, so the low notes are in the middle. So I'm watching Emmett play, and I'm going, okay, let me take that out of your hands. I'm going to be great on this. None of the notes are where I think they ought to be, and I went, oh wow, I sound really bad. How humiliating! But I'll buy one. So I did, and I spent the next 3 months thinking, maybe I wasted my money. But after that, I began to really think bass lines in fifths and dream in fifths. And I went, okay, I got the hang of it. This makes perfect sense. What an incredible idea. And it also improved my bass playing lines in fifths on my fourth bass. The challenge with the instrument being in fifths is how to make a bass tuned in fifths play a convincing fourth bass line.
Right.
And so being a bass player, I had to really work that out, because I really wanted to make this instrument work, because I loved how I could play my bass line and support it with a rhythmic guitar comp. And then there's no question to what chord I'm playing, what tonality, what groove I'm trying to set. I'm the all-in-one guy. The music's going to go the way I want it to, because I got the most sound and rhythm going on at once, and I loved it. So I worked at it, and then became quite proficient, going, okay, I can just now take this on any session as a bass. And so hence, I then decided to move to Los Angeles after, having this, we'll pay you no matter whether you're here or not. I figured this isn't what I want to do in my life. I want to join bands. I want to write music. I want to do sessions. So I moved to Los Angeles and discovered the non-payment every week. I went, oh God, this is horrible. I've never been unemployed before. So fortunately, tours are still going on, so I could afford to be in LA. And so I did that. And when I would get it called for a session, time is money, and they don't want you experimenting on their song with their dime. We hired you to come in and play bass, so that's what we want you to do. So I would come in with the stick, and I wouldn't mention that it was anything different. I would just say, it's a new kind of bass. you're going to love it. So the engineer would plug it in, and I would play the song, put more to it than I possibly could as a bass, adding rhythm, and maybe some little higher cool double stops that were not accessible on a standard 4-string bass, kind of creating what I was feeling out as a new style of bass line. So after I would do that, then I would, okay, either it's happening or it's not happening. And then the producer would say, you know, that's fantastic, great bass playing. And I go, well, thank you very much. Actually, next time you call me, ask for the Chapman stick. So that was my trick to getting in.
Yeah, right.
And
how did you get around the concept of? How did you get around the concept of, you know, going from a bass player holding down these rhythmic single notes and getting the grooves? And, you know, obviously a lot of players that get into the touch style or the tapping or whatever you want to call it. One of the challenges is getting those single note grooves on one particular note with the 2 or 3 fingers, where you've got the same sort of dynamics whereby you can get the groove pulsing. Did that take you a while to really work on?
It did. It's an interesting technique. I love what you're saying, because there's a difference between going with let me get my correct hand, and everything's the opposite. Okay, my plucking hand to go boom, 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 to get that feel. But on a tap instrument, you don't want it to sound like tap, 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 tap.
Yeah.
Now, not a click sound. So it was a matter of being real good of getting one finger to go down right after the other, and maybe laying a portion of my hand against the string to not have it make a click sound. So I got really good at that. The hard part was, you know, a lot of fourth bass lines go from the root to the third. Nice and simple when you're in fourths. When you're in fifths, now it's a jump. Like those of us that play know what a jump that will be. So, but the deluxe part was doing the on a bass, 1, 4, 5, 7, 8 pattern. That's kind of meat and potatoes. And when you do that in fifths, you ended up with you end up going up to the 9, and 1, 4, 5 octave 9 is quite deluxe. Let me do that on my bass, and then now the trick was make my bass sound like a bass on the stick, make my stick sound like a bass on the 4-string. And I spent time doing that and then working up the rhythm. The weird part was engineers are then like, okay, well, you go really high and you've got this guitar part. We got to separate that, and we have a guitarist, so we don't quite always know where to put that. So then it was learning, you know, to be appropriate, you know, either just stick to the bass side of the stick, and maybe not the top. But a lot of times that top groove makes total sense only with that bass line. So then sometimes I would just put it in, you know, elaborate mono, whatever they wanted to do. I just had a bunch of tricks for.
Well, I think one thing I love about your playing is it's because I'm a guitar player and I've come to it from a different aspect. But you know, I love drummers. I'm really into, you know, as a guitar player, I really love drums. And it's what I love about your playing is it's got groove, and, you know, like a lot of tap players sound amazing and they've got great technique. But for me, I love the ability to make it groove. And there's a lot of subtleness to actually making something groove than just playing the notes. It's the little, it's the dynamics and the dead notes, and they all play part of the actual synthesis of creating a groove. Because the instrument can be percussive, and you've got all these beautiful sort of dynamics at your fingertips. It's more than just notes. So, and I think you've just really mastered that. I think and that's what I love about when I hear your stuff. It's just like, as soon as you play, I'm like, I'm grooving. It's not just like, oh, that's nice notes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, thank you. And also, what I'm developing ongoing effort to create a new style line that it's like, oh, I've never heard that before. But when you stick your head into this bass line, it sounds simple only because all the aspects of it lock together. The nice little high melody notes that you put in against grooving against the bottom, holding down the fourth left hand. It can be really complicated to play, but my goal is always to make it sound simple, like I'm playing roots and fifths, but with a really, really cool groove. And so
you certainly
I
do
keep
that.
doing that.
Yeah.
each session that I get. Then Emmett, in 1999, came up with the NS stick,
Yeah. So tell
and
me about that. How, like,
that was,
where did Emmett, where and why did Emmett go, I need to evolve this, or I need to work with Ned and come up with something new?
I think when he did go to Ned, he was thinking, okay, he could see where it could be confusing. So he wanted to come up with an instrument that was just straight fourths. That was the first attempt. Now you can get it in different versions. He also tuned it so you had 4 strings and fifths and 4 strings and straight fourths. To me, I need at least 5 bass notes in fifths to do what I need to do. Anything less than that, it just didn't function for me, especially if it's inverted. So now he comes up with the straight fourths instrument, still split in stereo, so you can have the top melody strings have effects on it that the bottom 4 don't. He wasn't sure what this could do, and so he had Greg Howard and Steve Adelson, myself, Tony Levin, and a few others try this new version and give input on it. And so my aha moment was, okay, I understand. So Emmett was developing another tap style instrument, and I went, wait a minute, I've got the end of the body here that I can pluck like my bass and get that. I've got my 4 string down. I've got that back. I don't have to work so hard to make tapping sound like plucking. Um, that's that's incredible. And I go, and I've still got my stereo split if I want to do guitar-esque leads or just put chorusing on that one side. I go, that's beautiful, just like the stick. I go, okay, now I've got all the aspects of everything that I like about bass, everything I like about the stick, all in one. This is fantastic. Um, I'm I don't say that one instrument is better than the other, because with the Chapman stick or any stick tuned in inverted fifths, you can lay down a bass line in one hand and it goes up high enough fast so you've got melody. So you can make a chord and a bass line in one hand, leaving your other hand to either fill out the harmony or play solos. The NS is a little more restrictive in that, because it's in fourths and everything goes straight higher in fourths. You don't have that range. The chords come out
Right.
muddy. You can work a way around it by putting your first finger on the bass note and stretching these two way over to the highest 2 strings.
Right.
That gives you your top melody, and you can work the interior. Not quite as great as you can on the inverted fifth. I did gain the ability to pluck, and so with that, I had my groove. I had my 4 string bass feel. I had my stick feel. I could take one instrument on tour, not two. Uh, and I said, Emmett, this is fantastic what you have. And he said, okay, take it for a year, work on it, let us know, your discoveries. And then it went into mass production. So he took my opinions, and the one suggestion that I had that he did take one was, I go, it's not heavy enough. A bass has got to be heavy. It's 8 pounds. It's heavy enough. I'm glad he didn't make it any heavier. And then when he had a cello tailpiece that would come down, so you could actually hold the instrument up like that and
Right.
set it on the floor and play it. And I said, that's very cool. Nobody's going to really want to do that. In hindsight, it was a great idea, Emmett. Maybe you should have done that. Maybe not listen to me so much.
Maybe the
there.
Mark II.
But
Yeah.
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 So there you go. Then that kind of became my go-to instrument at first, unless I really needed that extra ability to create more of a harmony.
And that's pretty much your that.
chords.
And so that, as of today, with you've got what you've done 3 or 4 solo records and a bunch of records with Rocket Scientists. Is that right? Or
Yeah.
yeah. And
Rocket Scientist, and then Lana Lane. She'll have a new album coming out that I played the NS on. Basically, that became my first go-to instrument. When somebody hires me for a session, I pull the NS out first, and let's say specifically say, oh no, Rickenbacker or the stick. So, but first I bring that out to do what I think needs to be done. I love the tone that it gets too. Some of my greatest bass
are the
tones,
pickups
and,
EMGs, or are they actual Emmett's pickups?
yeah, that was also my other great suggestion, not to be taken. was, well, Emmett, why don't you put, P bass pickups in and then Strat pickups, or my favorite guitar is the Les Paul. Let's put those pickups in there. And he goes, very nice, Don. Thank you for suggesting. However, the EMG pickups are full range, so you're getting the full frequency of everything. So it's up to you if you want to dampen something out. It's all going to be there. And I went, okay, that makes total sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Here's my next suggestion, Emmett. Oh, thank you for that, Don. And it's already been addressed.
The politest no ever. Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Yeah. The wonderful, wonderful man. I would say, Emmett, you're not a bass player. Here's my needs. I need these big, thick strings. This thick is how I need them. And he goes, well, that's not necessarily true. He says, you can get a big, good, full bass tone out of a thinner gauge. And then I went, oh, no. And then I got my own bass strings and I put them on the stick and I went, this thing plays terrible. It sounds awful. I guess Emmett knew what he was doing. So I kind of just go,
okay. He knows what he's talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's great, mate. Well, look, I'm going to put obviously we've been cutting to some videos in the show, and I'll put some links to your site and to other bits and pieces that you're doing. Is there anything that you're currently working on that you want to tell people about?
Well, yeah, rebuilding the studio, rebuilding the house. That'll take a while, but as the fire was coming down the hill, and I was thinking, what things to take. The wife, the pets, okay, got them in the car. Let me go back and take all my instruments that are really, really important to what I do off the wall. I couldn't take everybody. I did miss the cellos and violas. And so it was funny as I was running through the studio, pulling things off the wall, a bit of craziness sets in. And it sounded like the instruments were saying, take me. So, all the sticks came off, all my important basses came off, but some of them were like, we're going to be okay. And of course, you always think the fire isn't going to get you. You'll be all right. So, I kind of listened to this little scenario going on. I go, okay, the upright bass can stay, and they burn terrifically. We'll be back bigger than ever recording.
Bigger and better
for now,
than ever, mate. Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, I love your music. I love your playing. I love your attitude, your positivity, and I just really appreciate you coming on and giving us some of these great stories and great insights to what is an amazing career.
Oh, thank you, and more to come. I'm not dead yet. There's going to be other great stuff.
Good. We'll have you on for another episode in the future.
I love that. Thank you so much, Finn, for doing what you do too. This is such a great site.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, bud. Well, have a great day.
I will. You do the same.
Okay. See you, mate.
All right.